Russia, an elaborate ceremony has been taking place in Pyongyang's main square to welcome the Russian President Vladimir Putin to North Korea. Pictures on state media showed ranks of soldiers and huge crowds lining the streets. It's Mr. Putin's first trip to North Korea in more than 2 decades. Well, many other global powers are keeping an eye on this visit, including another close ally of Russia, China. Well, joining me now is our China correspondent, Laura Bicker, who's following developments from Beijing. And Laura, of course, China is a close ally not only of Russia, but also of North Korea. How will it be viewing this visit?
Well, I think one of the first things to say, Catherine, is at this stage, I would view North Korea and Russia as fast friends, but not firm friends. This is not a relationship that either side have prioritised in the past. They're prioritising it now because they need one another, but they actually need China more. And they will not want to do anything, make any agreements that may annoy President Xi. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, China will look at these two leaders as global pariahs, and they will know that that is an image that they do not want to show both the West, Europe, and the US. So when it comes to this kind of alliance, they will be careful about how they align themselves with those two. China wants to be a global leader. It does not want to be a global pariah. And it wants the world to see it as such. So that's one of the reasons why we think when President Putin came here to Beijing, that we hear, or there have been reports that Beijing officials told President Putin not to fly straight from here in Beijing to Pyongyang, but to go on a different date. They did not like the optics of those three together. Now, why will that limit the relationship between North Korea and Russia? Well, when it comes to the amount of technology that Russia may give North Korea, it might make Mr. Putin think again. First of all, he might not want to give away his secrets to North Korea, who might sell it to another country. Second of all, China does not like it when North Korea has the kind of testing that we saw back in 2017, that time of fire and fury, when North Korea was testing on a regular basis. That brings US assets to the region, US aircraft carriers, and it brings alliances in the region. Already we've seen in the last year South Korea and Japan sign a trilateral agreement with the United States, something thought we would never see in this region. These two from Tokyo and Seoul have historical, bitter grievances, but they came together because they were worried about a rising Pyongyang, the weapons testing, and a rising China. China does not want these alliances to exist without them in it. And actually, while we're sitting here, there are Chinese officials in Seoul discussing their own bilateral relationship, another sign that China may want to distance itself from Pyongyang and what's going on in Pyongyang currently.
And Laura, following his visit from North Korea, President Putin is expected to go to Vietnam. How do you think China, the US as well, would view Russia's interest in the wider region?
I think actually both will be a bit wary about Russia's view of the wider region and going to both North Korea and Vietnam. And I think certainly the US, I mean, I was there when Joe Biden was in Vietnam signing agreements with Vietnam to elevate their partnership to the same level of China's. And I think there's already that rivalry between China and US in the region. I don't think either Beijing or Washington will want a third party to walk into it. But I think from a strategic point of view, the United States is most concerned and certainly has reiterated a number of times that over their concern about the weapons heading to Russia and China's support for Russia's war in Ukraine. What they do not want to see is China tacitly supporting Russia in any way that might help Russia on the battlefield. And that is putting pressure on Beijing a bit, because already they're talking about further sanctions and China is very vulnerable to sanctions. So they do not want any more issues that may cause problems with the economy. So I think when it comes to Russia's involvement in this region, both Washington, both Beijing are slightly concerned. But certainly China will not want any more attention on its relationship with Russia.